My name's Dana. I'm a real alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 28th, 1996. So I was born in Vermont. My family was fairly well-to-do. My father had a big construction business, and they built like schools and hospitals and things like that. And this was in like late 60s, early 70s. And I was born September 25th, 1964, and March 14th, 1968, my mother passed away from, she was having my third brother, and she had a C-section, and they cut her bowels, and she died 7 days later. So his birthday's on the 7th. And I'm not sure that my father ever really got over that. It was his first wife, and I would never call my father an alcoholic, but he sure drank like one. He never got any help or anything like that. But right after my mother passed away, he married his secretary, and she was mentally not stable. A lot of drinking in the house, a lot of drama. Like she would disappear for a while, and the only way my dad would find her in Vegas was with the credit card bills. And, she used to beat me, and it was just, so from a very early age, I remember feeling fear, and I remember feeling like drama and chaos. And this is not why I drank, but this is what I felt like. And, my dad was married 6 times by the time he died. And, so there was a lot of this going on and that going on. Outside of that, my dad was great to me. I loved him. He worked hard to provide for us. So we were in Vermont, and the construction crunch came, and we went bankrupt. Well, we had a vacation home in Hilton Head, and so we moved to Hilton Head. And so we were there about 1976, 75, somewhere in that area. And for you guys that don't know about Hilton Head, it was a very affluent area. Long time ago, it was just that way. And when we moved there, we were bankrupt. We were lucky to have the house that we were in. And so on top of the fear and the chaos, I really remember feeling less than, because, kids were at school with Mercedes and Porsches and all this stuff. And I don't know why I didn't think I was good enough or we were good enough or whatever, but that's the way that I felt. And, I said my dad had been married 6 times, and there were other moms and girlfriends and this, that, and the other. But for whatever reason, my father would always go back to the lady he married after my mother passed away. And like she would come to Hilton Head and I was scared of her. She used to beat me, and she's very toxic. And I remember the one time she was going to come to Hilton Head to visit, and I was really scared. And that's when I took my first drink. And there was liquor in the house or whatever, and there was some vodka or whatever it was. And I took this drink, and I went out on my skateboard, and I fell down, and I split my head open, and I had a hangover, and I threw up, and all of this kind of stuff. I didn't feel scared anymore. And I didn't feel less than anymore. And I said, there's something to this. And, through high school, I was an alcoholic, maybe a pre-alcoholic, I don't know. But, on the weekends we would drink with my friends, and on the weekend, like I said, on the weekends, I don't recall at that time having to take a drink, but wanting to, and enjoying it and looking forward to doing that. I recall that. So I went through school, and I had my first romance. young lady, her dad was a doctor, and through all this, my dad, he's going through wives and girlfriends, and he had built up a business in Hilton Head. We had a few businesses in Hilton Head, and we were okay. We weren't wealthy by any means, but, we were surviving, and, we were doing what we were doing. And my brother, they drank. I have some brothers, and we would party, and my dad would be out with these women and all this, and we had a hot tub on our back patio, and, we'd party and have girls over and friends and all this kind of stuff. And it just was the life that I was living. And I fell in love with this young lady, and I fell in love with her and what she was about. The stability of the family and the mom and the dad, and I made her, I guess, my higher power. I guess that would be a fair way to say it. And, she was 15 and I was 16 or whatever. And in my mind, we were going to be together forever. In my mind, this was the one. Well, it wasn't that way in her mind. And, that's okay. But when she broke up with me, I fell to pieces. I mean, I absolutely lost it. And that's when I really started using alcohol and other substances a lot more and a lot more and a lot more. And so I went through that, and for you all that have been through a breakup or a heartbreak, normal people don't deal with it the way that I dealt with it. It was very alcohol and drug related, the way I tried to deal with it, and it just got worse and worse. And so anyway, I had kind of muddled my way through that, and so I went to work for my dad's company. My dad would drink and stuff, so I was the enabler. I was codependent. I worked for his companies every day after school. I played in the orchestra. I played percussion in the orchestra. I played in the theater, musicals, marching band, all that type of stuff. And I enjoyed that. I did a lot of that when I was younger. And so I would, Hilton Head back then was a small town. It wasn't like it is today, where I drove around, and I also played in this bar. At night I was the house drummer, and, they would pay me with Budweiser, and, I was 15, I was about 16, 17 years old. I had just bought a Mazda RX-7. I had some money, had a car, doing my thing, and I was playing in the orchestra at the theater, and I was playing at the bar, and I was playing in the band, and all this kind of stuff. And, I was, in my mind, I was fine. I was just doing what I was doing. I had kind of gotten over this girl a little bit, and I decided I wanted to go to college. And I had met this girl, my first wife. Her name was Lisa, and so we just kind of started dating. She was older than I was, and I decided I wanted to go to college, and so I decided to go to Lees McRae College in Banner Elk, North Carolina. So right after school, I traded in the RX-7, bought a brand new BMW, and I couldn't take it to college. And I was like, this sucks. And so I got a little Toyota, went to college, and in Lees McRae College is in Banner Elk, North Carolina, and it's right by Beach Mountains, all those. So I went to school for 3 months, and my credit card statement is ski beach, because that's all I did. And I was I know it's an AA meeting, but I was smoking pot and doing this, and I'd fallen in love with this girl, and I didn't have my BMW, and I said, nah, I'm out. I'm gonna go back to work for my dad's company. So I went back to Hilton Head after school, kind of school, and I went back and I went to work for his company, and me and my brother got an apartment, and next door to the apartment were the Jamaicans, and they loved the freebase. And so I was like, okay, these guys. So it made sense to me because this guy needed legitimate income. So I hired him to work with my company, and it just started getting really bad, this whole situation. And so through all this, I'm still going to work every day. I'm still, got my life. I'm doing what I do. And me and Lisa, my ex-wife, got married. So we got married and we were both doing what we do. You know what I mean? It wasn't a healthy relationship. Nice person, good person and all this stuff. And I know this is an AA meeting, but this is so much part of my story. So we were doing a lot of coke. Okay. And the guy that we got our coke from imported it in diesel fuel tanks. So it smelled like diesel and probably had some residue on it or whatever. So what happened is by this, my ex-wife's kidneys went out. She lost her kidneys. And so she was on dialysis. I'm in the middle of my addiction. My dad died. I sold the business. I bought the business from him, was in the middle of it and all this, and sold the business. And me and my ex-wife were living in an apartment. We lost our house, all this kind of stuff. And she was on dialysis. And I would go to take her to doctor's appointments and I'd be so drunk or high or whatever, they would have to throw me out of there. And before this, we had tried to get pregnant and through fertility doctors and all this kind of stuff. And we were together about 8 or 9 years. We're going through all this and she's on dialysis. Her parents are in Philadelphia. And so I'm in the middle of doing what I do. And she's doing what she had quit because she was really sick. And so her parents came and got her, and took her to Philadelphia. And then that's when I went over the edge. And so she was in Philadelphia. I'm in Hilton Head. I met this absolutely fabulous lady that liked to drink liquid codeine in the morning, and I drink Jack Daniels. We were a match made in heaven. And, we're doing this, and she's in Philadelphia for about 2 or 3 months, and she called me one day and said, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, so she's on dialysis. She's pregnant. I had no money. I was working these construction jobs, just trying to make some money. I worked at the beach, flipping hamburgers. I had owned some businesses. I'd been nominated Businessman of the Year, all this type of stuff. And I'd been going through all this. And I said, and when my dad died, my brother turned in a car and had $5,000. And I didn't know he had it for me. He said, Dana, I'm going to give you this $5,000 and I want you to go to Philadelphia. I want you to get yourself together. And there was my really special girlfriend that I had to leave behind. And so I go to Philadelphia and her parents gave us a house. And I left Hilton Head with a U-Haul full of furniture, our furniture, a car on the back on a trailer, a bottle of wild turkey, and an ounce of cocaine because I was going to get straight. And so I get to Philadelphia and I need to get a job. And I started working in King of Prussia. We had one car. And the thing about being in Pennsylvania or up there, they don't have a quick trip where you can just go get you a beer. You got to go buy a case. And so I bought a case of beer and hid it in a snowbank between in Philadelphia so I could drink because I wasn't supposed to be drinking. They didn't want me drinking. Anyway, I'm there for a couple months. I bought a golden retriever. I don't know. It was bad. And so we got this one car and I'm using and I'm lying and my wife is sick and And this is where I made a decision that changed my whole life. I do not regret being an alcoholic, okay, because it has afforded me the opportunity to help a lot of people and to be the best version of myself that I could ever be. But because of the decision I made that night, and that decision I made was to get up in the middle of the night and leave my pregnant, on dialysis wife with no car, no money or anything, to go to Hilton Head to get high again. Because of that decision, I was not there to watch my daughter grow up every day. I have a great relationship with my daughter. I love her. With my current wife, we get along and all this stuff. But that was the decision I made. And how do I live with that? How do I stomach that? How do I make that okay? And I make it okay because I help another alcoholic. So I leave there, go to Hilton Head, back to Hilton Head. This girl really doesn't want a lot to do with me or whatever. And I got a little job. I knew some people. They gave me a little job at a hotel doing like banquets or whatever. They repossessed my car. I'm on a bike. And things are getting bad, you know. And I was in this apartment with this guy renting me a room, and I just steal money from him to go to the liquor store every day, wouldn't go to work, got fired. My brother called 911 on me. They took me to Hilton Head Hospital. My blood alcohol was 4.5. They put me in, they were trying to get me better. They put a catheter in me in a blackout. I pulled it out, almost bled to death. And when I got out of there were some alcoholics, some sober alcoholics that said, we're going to give you some help. And they said, we're going to send you to a place called the Bridges of Hope in Argyle, Georgia. And Argyle, Georgia is down in South Georgia. And it's very militant. Like when you go there, you go in a trailer out with no electricity or running water out in the woods for the first 30 days. They shave your head. You go to meetings, both feet on the floor, big book open, don't say a word, you know, this, that, and the other. And the way you pay your bill there is you go and you clean up these Civil War graveyards, like these old graveyards. We'd go and cut the grass and all this stuff. Well, I was coming, and they don't give you any medicine or anything like that. So I'm in the Bridges, and I'm going out and doing this. And one day, I'm weed eating next to an open grave, and I had a seizure because they wouldn't give me that. And a friend of mine, Mike B, put a shovel in my mouth so I wouldn't die. And they took me back to the place, and they said, you can't go on there, but there was a little store, you know, sold Cokes and sodas and this type of stuff. And I want you to run the store. You can't go out there anymore. And that's where I found rubbing alcohol. Because they had rubbing alcohol in there, and that's when I started drinking rubbing alcohol. And I was at the Bridges, and my ex-wife had my daughter, and so I called my girlfriend, and she came and picked me up out of Argyle, Georgia, and I left up out of that treatment center, went back to Atlanta, lived with some people, drama, drinking. I went to a place called Carp over on Candler Road. It was an old, this is 1995, in the treatment centers and things like that. And I'm going between them. And, I went to Hilton and I met this stripper, and she was really nice. And so I told her I wanted to meet my daughter because she went to Hilton Head to see some friends with my daughter. So she let me use her car to go to Hilton Head. So I left the treatment center on a weekend pass, went to go to Hilton Head to see my daughter. Saw my daughter. It was during Kentucky Derby. And we went to a Derby party, and they were drinking, all these drinks. And I didn't drink, but man, that obsession and that urge was crazy inside of me. So I stayed sober, saw my daughter for the first time, and I left Hilton Head. And by the time I got to Savannah, I had stopped and got some alcohol, got really drunk, picked up a hitchhiker, gave him the keys to the car. He drove me back. It was just a whole hot mess. Got thrown out of the treatment center. I was working for a company called Abbey Rents down in the city off 10th Street. And I had a rental business. I'd rented party equipment and stuff like that in Hilton Head. So I went to work for them and I was delivering stuff. And we went to Canoe on a Monday after I'd come back from Hilton Head. And I was whatever. And so we go to Canoe to pick up this stuff from this wedding from this weekend, like tents and glasses and all this kind of stuff. So behind Canoe was a tent, and they didn't pick up the glasses from the weekend, and there was alcohol in some of them. So I started drinking this stuff, and I got this big truck out there, and I'm supposed to be doing my job. I go in the kitchen, nobody's looking, steal a bottle of port wine, hide it in the motor compartment of the truck. I don't know why. And so I get drunk as all get out and pass out in the truck. Well, the owner of Canoe called the owner of Abbey Rents and said, this guy, I think he's dead or whatever. You need to come get him. So he comes, they get me, they take me back to Abbey Rents, they fire me, and I'm like, got something in the truck. Let me So I got this bottle of port wine and I moved into my new residence, which was a bridge on Howell Mill Road. And I climbed underneath that bridge, and I'm drinking this port wine, and I'm sick, and this, that, and the other. And one of my friends said I could stay with him, and that was over by the Prado, and I was staying with him, and that's where my mind went to rubbing alcohol. So I would go in convenience stores or gas stations or whatever, and I might have a quarter where I could buy rubbing alcohol, or I would steal it and drink it in the bathroom. So I'm drinking this rubbing alcohol. I'm living with him. I'm basically homeless. It's a hot mess. And I had a seizure real bad. And they put me in St. Joseph's Hospital, and they called in my family and read me my last rites. They said, at best, if he lives, he'll be blind or incontinent or whatever, because, it's poison. And so I'm in a coma. They read me my last rites. I come out of the coma, and I remember the doctor coming in and saying, you should really drink light beer. And so I was smoking back then. So I was up in the recovery room or whatever, and I went downstairs to smoke a cigarette. And I started thinking about that light beer, and I said, well, shit, good old days ain't that far away. So I took the wheelchair from St. Joseph's Hospital over to good old days and started stealing and drinking light beer. They had to put the wheelchair in a car, and somebody brought me back to the hospital. So I get out of the hospital, and 3 weeks later, I was back in there for doing the same thing again, drinking rubbing alcohol. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had been to, I can't tell you how many long-term treatment centers, how many hospitals, how many jails. I could get into a whole drunkalogue, but it just progressively started getting worse. When I was homeless, I got $5. I got my last paycheck from Abbey Rents, and I went and stayed at Claremont Lodge. And I'm staying in Claremont Lodge, and there's a bar next door called Dugan's. And I would wait in the middle of the night for people to leave bottles of their alcohol by the car so they wouldn't be drinking and driving, and drink it. And I'd go and living back underneath this bridge, and so I'm out of the Claremont Lodge. I had $5 in my pocket because I turned the key in. And there's other things that happen, but it's irrelevant. And so I've got this $5 in my pocket. I'm living under the bridge. Stealing I didn't drink rubbing alcohol anymore. Bonus. And, but I would go and, I mean, it was so bad that I would just go in a convenience store and steal a beer or a 12-pack or whatever and just go live under the bridge and drink. So one night, I'm underneath, and my ex-wife had sent me a picture of my daughter, real cute, like a glamour shot type of thing of, in this big picture. So I'm living under this bridge and I'm stealing, trying to figure it out. My brothers wanted nothing to do with me. My family wanted nothing to do with me. And I'm living under this bridge and the train would go by and it would wake me up. So I was sleeping under this urine-infested blanket. During the day, I would go to like Marriott Marquis or something to ride the elevator up, take food off the people that would leave them outside of their rooms. I was smoking. They'd take cigarettes from people that have cigarettes. I mean, that's the way I'm living. And so I'm passed out underneath this bridge under this urine-infested blanket, and the train go by one night, and I saw the picture of my daughter in my mind's eyes. And I said, Dana, either you're going to die or you're going to be there to raise your daughter. So I came out from underneath the bridge, and there was a liquor store right by there, and I got a Budweiser tall boy, and I called 911 on myself. I said I was going to hurt myself because I thought that was the best thing that I could do. I did not know they were going to keep me so long, but they took me to Grady, and I'm at Grady and I'm detoxing, and they said you need long-term treatment, and so there's a place in the city called Covenant Community. It's right next door to the Varsity. It's similar to the Extension, only it's got 14 beds. And they came and interviewed me, and this was right before the Olympics. So they came and interviewed me, and I didn't want that. I wanted to go make some money. I wanted to get an apartment. I wanted to see my daughter, but they let me in Covenant Community. But before I could get in Covenant Community, I had to go through detox, and I went through Fulton County Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center off Boulevard, and I stayed there for 30 days. I was there for a 7-day detox and upstairs before I could go to Covenant Community. And this is how God works. No violence in this place, right? And I'm the only Caucasian guy in there. And before they let me in there, they said I had to be drunk. So I took the last $5 from my key. This is my last drink from my key from Claremont Lodge. And there was a liquor store, and I got a pint of alcohol and a hamburger, and I was drunk, and they let me in there for detox. And so I'm in there, and I get jumped during detox. And this guy beats me up. And so I thought I was out. I thought I was done. And everybody knows that guy did not start it. Now, what would have happened if they didn't stand up? And they let me go up 30 days. So I left there, and I went to Covenant Community, right next to there. Covenant Community, because I've been to so much treatment and I was so sick and all this kind of stuff, they sent me to a place called the Cab Addiction Clinic, owned by the Woodruff family. It's off of Ponce. And we would go there like we were going to school. Like we would take the bus and we'd go, and they would have spirituality, meditation, counseling, kind of like an IOP today, similar to that type of thing. And so I'm going there for, and I thought I was getting out in like a month or something. 6 months. I'm in there every day. And that's where I got my foundation. And so I go there, and I go through Covenant Community, and I started working. Got a job and started working for this company, and the owner of the company bought me a car. And Covenant Community said, either you keep that car or you're leaving, because they didn't allow me to have a car. Well, I decided to keep the car. And I left up out of there, and I went to stay with my friend again, and I was sober, but this was the weirdest thing. Covenant Community is down in the city. My friend was up in up north. Anyway, up that way. And I'm driving up Jimmy Carter Boulevard, 5 Jimmy Carter Boulevard. So I'm driving up, and I passed by the Gold Club on the right. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting drug tested tonight. I can go in there and I can get drunk. I had some money. I was working. And I remember looking over there and I remember saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this. And I passed right by there. And so I went, stayed sober. My friend and I, we went to, I've got time. My friend and I'm sober. I got 9 months, something like that. And, my friend and I went to go play golf. And we're out there and he's like, we'll go play golf and have some fun. And I'm like, I was sober. It was fun, whatever. I hadn't played golf since I was sober. So we play golf. We get done and he goes, let's go meet some women. I'm like, great idea. And I said, where are we going? He goes, Johnny's Hideaway. So I walk in Johnny's and I'm like, this is an alcoholic breeding ground right here. So I'm freaked out, because I haven't been around alcohol or anything. My friends drinking or whatever. So I said, well, I'll just play video poker, and until he's ready to go. Cause I don't want any part of this. So I'm playing video poker and this really good looking brunette comes up and says, why are you putting money in that machine? And I said, well, I tell you what, if I win, I'm going to buy you shrimp cocktail all night long. So I won. I married her. And so that's my wife. And, so we met at Johnny's and, she hates it when I tell that story. So we met and so that's what happened, what I went through a little bit. And so one of the things like in AA, and then let me digress just a little bit. So what is it like today? My daughter, let's talk about my daughter. My daughter's 29 now. She lives in Philadelphia. We put her through college. She's got a degree in theater. She's an actress in community theater all around Philadelphia. She loves it. She's a good kid. Since she was 4 years old, she's been coming to Atlanta. She knows my wife like her mom. My ex-wife calls my wife, thank you for being a great stepmom. We all get along. It's all because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because we all practice the principles. I don't always agree with what my ex-wife does, but I respect her, and my living amends to her is to be the best father I can to my daughter. And so if my ex-wife needed something, me and my wife, we did without through the years. School, clothes, braces, whatever, car, whatever, doesn't matter. And so my daughter is a good kid. She knows me. I go back to when I said, that's my biggest regret is not seeing her grow up, but I have been part of her life. I always paid my child support gladly. My ex-wife never had to ask me for something that I didn't need. Me and my wife did without to make sure that my daughter could have whatever she needed. Not wanted, needed. So my daughter, we just went to Philadelphia to see her. She was in Steel Magnolias. We flew up there and visited her and saw her in this play. Had a great time. She comes down, yada, yada, yada. My ex-wife and I, her parents, her dad just died last year. I went to the funeral. All her brothers and sisters treat me like family. I've made my amends to them. My amends to them were to be the best father to my daughter and to be good to them and to Lisa, my ex-wife. My current wife, we've been together. We got married 22 years ago. We were together for a while before we got married. We have a good relationship. What about my program? What do I do for my program? Everybody in here does something for AA. Okay. Some people make coffee. Some people greet. Some people do sponsorship. Some people do lots of different things. One of the things that when I first got sober, I had a year sober and I started going to a book study and I fell in love with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous because, see, I could never figure out why I couldn't have one. I couldn't figure that out because that would mean that I'm only going to have one. And when I went through the doctor's opinion and they talked about the allergy and the phenomenon of craving, that's where I was sold on AA. I got it. I understood that I had this disease. So I fell in love with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I started a men's big book study over in Roswell. 21 years I taught that book study. And 15 years ago, me, JJ, I was coming to this meeting on Sunday, and I was doing a book study in the back of the room, and one of the board members said I couldn't do that because it wasn't a sanctioned meeting and told me to leave. And so I had a resentment, whatever, and I told JJ, who was running the extension at the time, JJ's my best friend, and he said, well, bring it to the extension. So I've been teaching the big book at the extension for 20 years. I taught at the women's extension for 20 years. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is what I enjoy doing. It makes sense to me. So I teach the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I still have the same sponsor for 27 years. I still sponsor people. I still come to meetings. I still pray. I still try to meditate. I'm not real good at it, but I try. And, I still do these things because they're working. I tell people that I do the same thing today that I did 28 years ago because it works. And I tell people, and this may be pompous or whatever, but I'm going to stay sober the rest of my life. And they say, hey, you. And they say, well, how do you know that? But if I don't have the faith that what I've been doing for 28 years is going to work for another 28 years, why would I keep doing it? And I do it one day at a time, but I have the faith. I mean, I've proven. I've seen it in y'all. I've seen it in y'all. So my program, I just keep doing what I'm doing. So what about my wife? My wife and I, we have a healthy marriage. Is it all roses? Do we always, I love you every day? And yeah, I say that every day, but, but we work through things. We have a home that we love and that we enjoy, and it's big enough that my family can come and my daughter can come. She's got her own bedroom in the house. And we're blessed in that area. She's about to retire. She's been on her job for 29 years. And we get along like that. 4 years ago, my life took a drastic change. I worked for the same company for 23 years now. And I worked for this man by the name of Ron Godwin. And we have a third-party logistics company over in Kennesaw. And he was like my friend and my mentor. And through the years, I'd owned part of the company or whatever. And 4 years ago, he died of a heart attack on a Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. We had a business succession plan in that, we would be able to carry the business on. So me and my partner bought the business from his estate. We did it the right way. We paid for it. We did this thing. And throughout all this, the building that we were in, and this isn't a small operation. It was 70,000 square feet. And we buy the business, and 30 days later, they sold the building out from underneath me. So I got this business, and I got 70,000 square feet. I got 22 employees, and I got to figure this out. And I'm scared, and I'm frustrated, and I'm nervous. But I'm thinking, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, my higher power, my higher power, my higher power. Like I said, I've been sober a minute. Until that day, I understood when you read on the wall one day at a time makes perfectly sense to me. I've had to live it. I had to live it one day at a time, or I would have gone absolutely crazy. God put some people in our life. We put an investor together. We bought a 125,000 square foot distribution center in Calhoun, Georgia, 95 tractor trailers full of stuff. We moved from Kennesaw up to Calhoun. My business is doing better than it's ever done. We treat our employees with respect. We treat our customers. There were three things that I wanted to happen when my boss died. I said I wanted to carry on his legacy because he loved the people that he worked with and he loved his customers and he was a good man. And I wanted to carry on that legacy. I wanted to take care of the customers that all of us have worked so hard for 23 years. We have customers who've been with us that long. And I wanted to take care of the employees that had put their heart and soul in that. And we've achieved those goals. So what it used to be like, if you look at it, it used to be a mess. I used to be self-will run riot. I used to be done with addiction, eaten up with addiction, willing to drink rubbing alcohol to get alcohol in my system. I never think about alcohol anymore. Okay, so that's what it used to be. What happened? What happened is God happened in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I talk about this in here. God's grace got me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. The work that I do keeps me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, so that's what happened. I did what I was told. I came to meetings. I worked the steps. I did all these things and continue to do them. That's what used to be like. What's it like now? I have a life second to none. I have a beautiful family. I have friends that would do anything for me as long as I'm doing the right thing. Anything. And I mean, the best friends in the world. My wife and I have a great relationship. I have a business by the grace of God that we've been blessed that we're doing well. And my life is second to none. Is it perfect? No, it isn't, but it is so much better than I ever imagined that it could be. And when it's not, I have a solution that can help me with that. And that is due to you all in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. The literature tells me what to do. You show me what to do. You show me what to do. So, I think I didn't forget anything, but I'm grateful that I was up here with. Thank y'all so much.